And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Bob. I am your griot, your sensei. I'm here to tell you a story. Now, what brings you here, I hope, is to be entertained, to be informed, to give you something to think about. That's what a griot does, right? And so, don't you know, don't believe a word I say. First off, and you shouldn't really believe anybody. Trust but verify. So, the story of the old crone is I've said it, told it many times. First did it out on um, John's channel, and kind of went viral, and then I just told parts of it. So this is going to be like a series. I'm going to try and give context and the big picture, right? So, as a young lad, I was born into a family. My father was a Air Force officer, and he was triple Virgo, great organizer. So that's what he did, didn't fly airplanes. So he's never going to be a general. But my mom, who was a triple Capricorn, ruled the world. So she was going to go up to college in like the early 1900s. She was born, no, yeah, well, she was born, I think, in like 1905, 1904, somewhere around there. And she was going to go to up to college. She's really smart, smartest one in her class. And she was going to go up to college, and then her dad died, and things happened, and so she had to go up to work. So she went up to New York City, went to nursing school, and kind of ran Roosevelt Hospital. There were all these guys' names up on the door, but they were there for patronage, and my mom just, had it in her to run the place. And then the Depression happened, and so she was really good at getting in with the powerful people, And so Robert Moses and the guy who Grover Cleveland, I think, who did the New York World's Fair, and so she had all these young nurses, and the rich people, they had a lot of stuff, investments, but the stock market crashed, so their liquidity was but they still had gravitas, and so when she was working at the hospital, all these rich folk had, grandma and mom and dad, all who needed, somebody to take a look after them, and so my mom kind of traded, so she sent off her girls from the nursing school to take care of these folks and called it training, and she, instead of getting paid, she got this amazing apartment in Forest Hills. It was just being built, and so she went there. Had like 15 bedrooms and a dance, hall, and you name it. So she was the belle of the ball. My mom loved to party, and my dad had a over horizon attitude, and so she could have married any of those rich guys, but they were all, she knew she'd never get them to do whatever she wanted. But my dad, she did. So that was and they're Catholic, so they had 6 kids. I was the youngest. I was the last one, and so my grandma grabbed me, and my grandma came over on the boat in the late 1800s, and she met my grandpa there, and they had the American dream, and so he was one of the last barber surgeons, and so he worked at the Waldorf Astoria. He had, J.P. Morgan came over and got him and offered him a deal he couldn't refuse. And he went there and was the barber at the Waldorf. But he owned a barbershop, and he gave him the barbershop. He owned it in perpetuity. And so, JP was the first guy my grandpa would go see, and every day, and he would go up in the private elevator to JP's. JP had the whole top up there, and all the other rich and important people would come and get theirs done there. And he had a mezzanine in this barbershop, and he, in the 20s, the girls wanted the boys' haircuts, so he had a beauty shop up there. So he had both ends covered. And back in the day, Hollywood wasn't in California. Films, Edison's first film studios were in Long Island because he did them out at the airfield out there, and because they had big hangars, and so that's where film started, and so all the movie stars were in New York City and Long Island, and there was also vaudeville, and so he took care of the uber rich people and the movie stars and the vaudevillites. So he had a barbershop in the Waldorf, and he also had one out in a place called Freeport, right? And so they had a pretty good life, and they had 3 boys. My dad was the youngest, and he was the best looking one, and he was football star. And back in the day, being Italian was worse than being black. In America, everything is class, and black folk were slaves, so they were property. So they have a special place in the class lineup. But like today, there's 2 men that have more money. Those 2 guys have more money. Warren, what's his name, and Jeff Bezos have more money. Those 2 guys have more money than 40% of the American public, and 1/2 of 1% of the rich. Jeffrey Bezos, Warren Buffett, Moron Boy, Facebook, Elon Musk, and these are all, they didn't invent anything. They didn't know anything great. They're just poster boys. Billy Gates. They all went to the same special high school, right? Mr. Apple, Mr. Google. They all come from this genre of private education, and even though their parents, they all have maybe semi-humble beginnings. These guys were just picked, and what's his name? Mr. Facebook is a perfect example. I mean, just look at him when he's in public. I mean, he's barely a human being. So, what they represent is, people used to say, like Rockefeller said, Rockefeller said, JP or John. Anyway, Grandpa Rockefeller said, God made me the richest man on earth, and the biggest secret isn't that we're the rich. It's the lie that we tell the general public that they work hard and follow the golden rule. They too can be rich. They too can be, the leader. They too can be the boss, right? Not really. Because those guys who are the poster folks of trillionaires, they're not even, they're not in control. They're just the poster boys, right? So they're the advertisement, They're like the Marlboro Man of wealth. So when I was born, into this really Catholic family, I, my grandma took over, at an early age, like when I was about 6 months, because I stuck a knife in the electric socket. And I was like a floating ground, so I didn't get electrocuted. I said, ooh, this kind of feels nice. And I was talking to electricity, and my sister, I'll be a plucky booba now, like I was spitting out sparks. So my mom came running across, her big feet going across the wall. Bang, she grabbed me, and she got whacked by the electricity. I threw her across the room, And then they put me in the crib and turned it upside down like I was in prison. And that's when my grandma said, "Okay, I'm taking this one." So she brought me up, and I had the beauty of New York City because they still have the Long Island Railroad is here, but on Sunrise Highway, they still had the trolley car that trundled along, and that cost a nickel to go from Freeport to New York City. It took an hour or two, whereas the Long Island Railroad zipped right in, and you were there in maybe half an hour, 20 minutes, straight into New York City, not into Brooklyn. And because then we got off in Brooklyn, and then we had a transfer. We went down into the subway and took the subway into Manhattan. But at the time, I grew up in Harlem. The other half, I grew up in Long Island. And I would be, you know, I didn't really see my family till I was about 6. I mean, for birthdays, Christmas, stuff like that. But grandma was it for me, right? And so, because of my grandfather, knowing all these rich and powerful people as the barber, um, she knew them too, and she had 28 rules, and the two I use most is to live like a millionaire, but not be one. And the other one is don't work for anyone, period, unless be a consultant, work as, they're your clients, but never work for anybody that they don't need you more than you need them. So when I was about 9, I was still playing with electricity and doing all kinds of stuff. And my Uncle Steve was an engineer. He used to give me all these engineering um, magazines, and I started to read things like Scientific America and Aviation and Space Weekly and the IEEE Bulletin and things like that. Like when I was 8, 9, 10, and so I had an amazing just there, but I also caught the eye of Cardinal Cushing, and he was like my godfather, like in the movie. But he was, a cardinal, and so he realized I was a special, kind of interesting young lad, and so he made sure that I had the best of education. Hey, buddy, bud, good to see you, buddy. Buddy is one of our old cadre. He's been around from the beginning. And what's great about Buddy is that and that's kind of what the story about the old crone is. So I'm giving you a little backstory of where it came from, what I was, um, and I, from that early age, I was constantly being sculpted. Meaning, there were a lot of people who came into my life, like oh, what's his name, Kluver, Billy Kluver. Billy Kluver, very interesting guy. He worked at the Rad Lab. He got a Nobel Prize for discovering, or one of the guys discovering background radiation, dark matter, because he was Mr. Microwave. And so he took one of those microwave horns and just stuck it up into space and see what it could hear. So, plus, when he was going to school in the 20s in Europe, um, he got enamored by, European modern art, all the art that was coming from the Enlightenment on, pointillism and expressionism and all those ism paintings and art. So in America, all they had was Grandma Moses. So he brought all of that to New York City and did an art show in the New York City uh, oh, Armory, right? Big building. And that is today where the Museum of Modern Art is. And so Billy brought modern art to America. Plus, he was, talking to the aliens. And so he was at the Council for Foreign Relations, and my parents they lived on Park Avenue, just across the street from them. And I would take our dog, my dog, Dandy, King Dandy, to the park, right? And we would walk right by this building, and there was no door in. There was a big gate, but it was always locked up, and they had guys with guns, in the little doorways on the side of the gate. And but they had on 69th Street this big wall. I mean, it's a big castle kind of a building, and there was a glass door, but no handle, no nothing. It's like a big window, but it was like cut into the wall, and you looked in there, and all of this amazing stuff was blinking and shiny and all kind. That's the first place I saw a hologram, right? And I used to go and just look in there, and just look in there. And go, what is this? I was about 9, 10, and one day I'm looking in there, and this guy comes up from me and goes, "Looks kind of fun in there, doesn't it?" I go, "Yes." And he puts his hand on the glass, and the glass slides into the wall, giving access into this place. And we walk in, and then he goes, "Put your hand on this other glass panel over here." I do. And he goes, "Now, from now on, you come by with your dog, all you have to do is put your hand on the glass like I did, and it'll open for you." I said, "But don't I have to get permission? Doesn't someone have to be here?" He goes, No. I'm okaying that you can go in. And so that guy, until the day he died, was one of my mentors. He mentored me in everything, science and art and you name it, and introduced me to all kinds of people that gave me. So between my grandma, Cardinal Cushing, Billy Kluver, and Grandpa Stoll, I had, total, access to almost everything. It's so wonderful to see you. Yeah, look absolutely beautiful as usual. How's the mental endurance road trip coming? Oh, every time I call Johnny, he's not really, you know, he can't even talk to me for more than 20 minutes. He goes, "I'm getting anxious. I can't talk to click." So being in a car, I don't know. And I keep telling him, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." Because it would be fun. It'd be interesting. It'd be great video. But he has to be up for it. He has to be able to do this trip. And I'm not gonna, he kind of throws me out of the car in the middle of Boise, Idaho. At 900 miles to the closest gas station. I don't think so. So until John can actually, um, you know, interact, and he hasn't left that mountaintop. He doesn't interact with people. I'm concerned about him, but I spent 2.5 years trying to get him up to snuff, and anyway. So that's it is what it is. He's still my bud. I still care about him, and he still is the canary of the social coal mine. I mean, just watch his videos. Woo, Anyway, so I got sent to, when I was in grammar school, a nun the Catholic Church tried to kill me and tried to promote me as, their version of a rocket scientist for the Pope. It's like, and so this, in first grade, this nun who was actually a Nazi guard. She was known as the milkmaid of pain. I mean, she would, do things to men's nipples until milk came out, or other things. And so, and the Catholic Church, most of the people who escaped, who were Nazis and really, they had this thing called the rat line, and it kind of came out of the Vatican and went other places, right to America, Operation Paperclip. We got 70,000 Nazis in our government. And that's why we have, Jojo the Bee, and everybody else, Moscow Mitch. Moscow Mitch, his wife is, her family owns the biggest shipping company in China. And Donnie Chump made her the Secretary of Transportation. And I would, Mitchie boy, he won the last election, so he's there for at least another 5 years. And I bet you, 10 to 1 that after he does all the damage he can do to the United States, He's going to retire, and he's going to retire to China. So instead of Moscow Mitch, he's really Beijing Mitch. So and so I've been tiptoeing and tap dancing all around this stuff. So you know, I didn't die, but the nun crushed my larynx, broke my orbit, broke my jaw. So from 9 to about 11 and a half, um, almost 10 to 11 and a half, um, I didn't talk. I couldn't see out of this eye. This eye was like in another dimension, and it still is. So that's why I can read people so well. And so I really learned how to listen, right, and to look at people's body language. And I was sent off to Garden City, Long Island, where the Marinols had a big, like, school, and they did social research, and the Marinols are like the best, nicest, most like Jesus Christ order that Catholic Church has for you. So there were 9 of these 10. Well, there were 9 major guys who were brilliant. 2 got Nobel Prizes, and that's where I was headed, to be one of those guys, right? And so, I learned how to read Latin and not so much speak it, but I could listen to it and understand it. I have this because she broke the little anvil in my ear here. I have this real knack to listen, right? And I can go to foreign lands and listen and look at their body language and see their energy and kind of twig the language. As long as I'm not speaking English, I'm totally submersed into it. I went out to Brazil. I picked up Portuguese pretty quick. And as an anthropologist, I was the first white guy they ever saw. When I was in Brazil, I was sent out to, into the deep forest, which don't exist anymore, the Amazon. And I would meet the people, but they would have "I Love New York" T-shirts and mirrored sunglasses and flip-flops. Well, these guys, a handful of tribal people I lived with, they were still wearing a grass skirt, right, the bone through their nose. And most white people never came back, but they were actually waiting for me. Right? So this gives you a nice little 22 minutes and 40 seconds of where I was when I met. Or kind of who I was and what I was going to become, kind of guy, when I went to Ireland. And what happened was, I went to a prep school called the Lynch School for Boys, which was Joe Kennedy was my roommate. Ricky Lynch, Eddie Merrill, Perry Dye, whose folks owned Seagram's, Alex Orb, family owned U.S. Steel. I mean, the power elite of like the 19th century into the 20th century. And and they had a few guys like me. I mean, I was put there because I went to a seminary called Canterbury School for Boys, and that was, I had a 3 line thing. Meaning, guys who are going to be priests wore cassocks, guys who are going to be businessmen wore 3-piece suits, and guys who were going to be military wore, uniforms. And they were all first and foremost going to serve the Pope. And it was, take the worst of the Roman Catholic religion. Now, there's some really good parts of it. Some of the best people I know, like the Marinols, are just amazing people. And they're there to serve love's co-creation. That's kind of where I picked that one up from. So, but at that thing, it was all about class, and power. And I was put there by a cardinal, so I had a certain cachet, but I kept, um, at school, the people who worked there, the people who worked in the kitchen, the people who worked in the gardens, the people who worked fixing things, they were indentured servants. They couldn't leave. They were slaves. And this was like 1962 or 3. And I was like, what? No. I mean, yes, I kind of knew about black people and poor people, but this is slaves? So I organized them into a union, when I was a freshman. And I did all, and so then they retaliated and, they had corporal punishment. They tied me up to fire pipes and beat me with 2x4s. Priests did. And they did it in their underpants. And then I ended up in the hospital and told my dad, get me out of here. So tough it out. So I had this very interesting kind of thing. And so the cardinal got me out of there and put me in this other school. And it was just as bad. They didn't beat you, though. And the one really interesting thing was it was very small, meaning, my freshman year, there was only 120 kids there. I mean, that's how elite this place was. And I spent 3 years there, and there were some really great teachers there who thought, if we can change these kids, we might be able to change the world. Well, they tried, and I had great teachers, and that's where I got into theater and literature and photography and a whole bunch of other things, and opening my mind. My mind was always open, but these guys really, literature, they really. I mean, I read, but mostly I read technical things, and, journals and things like that. But this was like, where I read all the classics, and of course, I could read Latin. I could read, all the Greek dudes right early on, right before it got translated into Cliff Notes, and so I had a real, unbelievable classical education, and so my headmaster hated my guts because no matter what he tried to do, it always came up roses, and I always made him look terrible. Always was pulling pranks on him. His wife was like, Attila the Hun, and his kids were dumber than doorknobs. And so he made sure that I was going to go to Vietnam because, I had done a lot of pretty impressive things. So there were a lot of schools that, yeah, you can come to us. But he would never send my paperwork to those schools. They would send a letter, okay, this guy's applying. We need to see this, this, and this. He never sent anything. And so he never said whether I got into a college or not. So I was graduating and I didn't get any college. So I was head of their theater department at that school, and we did art in a way that the headmaster never even knew about it because he was dead set against art. If you couldn't kill it, screw it, cheat it, lie it, steal it, that was his worldview of the imperial set of the. I'm entitled, I'm exceptional kind of motif. And so, we did this play called JB, the story of Job. And it's a really good little play, touches all the bases of theology and what we're doing here. And I played the devil. And so a buddy of mine played God. And we were like in a titty bar going on and watching Job guy and, tormenting him, And so we performed that in Boston at the Columbia Broadcasting whoop-de-doo of, theater and art, kind of thing. And we won this big award. And we also had a literary magazine, and we won for that. And our headmaster had no idea that we did this. Anyway, so there was a lady named Marion Tulin who was on the board of that organization. She was also on the board of Lincoln Center, and she also ran the Vivian Beaumont Theater, and she also was on the board of Juilliard. Now, by that time, I was working in rock and roll and building nightclubs and fancy restaurants. And so I worked for Herbert Berghoff and Uta Hagen, HB Studios, was part of Living Theater. And so I kind of knew her. I met her before, but then she saw me do my thing. And she was like, so she basically, right around the time that, schools have to tell your draft board that you're going to go to college or not, she just basically sent a letter to my draft board saying he's going to go to college. So first she got me into Hofstra, And all of the professors there were jealous because I was doing what they wish they could be doing. And I was like, 18 and they were, 35. And anyway, and I had a really great girlfriend and it was pretty cool. And I was, it was a total Jewish school, house was total, and I played lacrosse in high school. And so I could play lacrosse pretty good. So I didn't want to be on the team, but I went out and I would scrimmage with them. The coach said, "Can you come and scrimmage with my boys and show them some tricks?" And because most of these guys are football players and they've never played with. I said, "Sure, no problem." So I was having a good time until my girlfriend, wasn't my girlfriend anymore, and I just got bored with that school. And my mother, again, I was, part of the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers at that time, and the union was very socially conscious, but it was kind of dying. So they had a thing called the Boys Athletic Fund and no, Girls Athletic Fund, boys, and basically they try to get as many kids out of the inner city into up to Bear Mountain, out to the country. And so I was there as a counselor. So I was not even aware that I got into a college, and my mother filled out all the paperwork, like where does what things does he need, da da da. And my mom said, well, he's a Catholic boy. He has to be with Catholics. He can't be, with any of those Jews. He's got to be with a Catholic. So there were, 30,000 kids at that school, maybe 20 Catholics. But all the Catholics in that school were boys of mobsters, and they were being sent to college to be like college smart mobsters. And so when I showed up, to go to, and my parents didn't take me to school, they threw a few things in a suitcase, old moldy suitcase. My dad gave me $10, and I took the Long Island Railroad to Hempstead and, walked through there. And I went and signed in, and they gave me a little cap, and I was like, straight. I looked like the guy on the cover of uh, what's that story about the guy who's it's a going from teenager to manhood, 1950s Catcher in the Rye. I looked like that guy, right? And I acted like that guy because I was really smart. I had a lot of street experience, but still my social interaction, because I just dealt with grown-ups my whole life, really didn't, and super rich boys, so, you know, anyway, I show up there, and they had just built these two, gigantic dorms, 22 stories high, and very, very nice rooms, and it was like a hotel. And on top of each was like, the Rat Skill, where you're supposed to hang out. But it was on top of the glass all around. You could see New York City, amazing, because Long Island's flat. You could see amazing view everywhere. Anyway, they tell me, go to this place, and it's the dorm that's, it's all boys. This building's all boys. Whereas the other building was co-ed. It was not co-ed because they had two elevators, and they had, odd floors for girls, even for boys, and the elevators, you had to put your card in, and anyway. So, whereas mine, they didn't care. If people could come and go from our dormitory, no problem. So the mobsters became really smart, and a year or so before I got there, the school had gone totally computer, all the records and everything, and the boys were smart enough, and this is in, still the 60s, like, let's see, when was that? Maybe 66, 60s, no, 69, 68 and 69. And I graduated high school in 68. So, um, I go, I push the button, I go up there, and it's like a gigantic rave. And everyone's like, it's like, Animal House on steroids. And, and there's naked girls running around, and guys, everyone's smoking pot and doing whatever. And it's like, 2 in the afternoon, and they're just getting started, So I get out of the elevator, and I'm like, I have this look on my face, like, I haven't even stepped off the elevator. I'm like right there, and the door's like clang, clang, and basically, um, you know, this guy comes over. He was like Otter, kind of, the good-looking, the well-spoken one. He's going to be a lawyer or a judge or something. And he goes, "So you're the new boy?" I said, "Yep." He said, "You just came from prep school." I said, "Yep." And he goes, "You went to that place? I mean, he's smart. He knew what it was. It for the super elite." So he goes, "You super, your dad going to be president or, you know, head of USD?" No, no, I was just there. He goes, "Oh, you're an honor guy." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, look around. This is your new world." And he goes, "You got a room down at the end, really nice, corner room, windows on both sides, very nice. And your roommate's going to be this guy from Indiana who's going to be one of our basketball stars. He's like 8 foot tall, but he's a white boy, and he is Catholic like you, like all of us." And we weren't acting like, I mean, maybe because I knew some Cardinals who used to love to play Twister naked, covered in olive oil. So you know that was about the level of these guys. And so anyway, I go down, and it's really a nice room, right? And I have, even though I got a roommate, I still have my own little room, right? And so I'm like, and he walks me down there. He gives me the key, and he shows me a few other things. And goes, in your room, you have your own toilet, a sink, but the showers are right there. And so I go, okay. And so, you know, I'm going like, I've just been traveling. It's really hot. I'm all sticky. It isn't like now where I haven't had a shower in James P7. I'm telling a story. Uh, well, as I said earlier, that when John can be able to have a conversation with me on the phone for more than 20 minutes without getting anxious, then I know I could get in a car with him and drive across the country. But until then, not so much. I might, as the winter comes, that might be, and I might go and stay a while and try and help him get to a place where he can do this, so he can do what he wants. Anyway, back to the story. Now I'm at Hofstra University, looking at my room. I put my one little suitcase on my bed. I sit on the bed. I go over, sit in my. They have a little carrel, like a little study thing with a nice lamp, nice chair, shelves for books. And then, look, this is nice. I like this. And then I go into the shower room, and it's really nice. And there's somebody taking a shower. And I kind of go in, and I'm looking around, and I turn around, and there's this naked girl. I mean, naked as naked can be, and she's taking a shower. And she's taking the shower to basically pleasure herself. And she goes, "Can you take your clothes off and come over and help me shower?" Now, I had a few girlfriends, but I mean, I never like just hooked up, right? Every girl in my life, I had the dance and the thing, and I mean, it was pretty obvious to all 6 girls that I had up until that time. The minute we saw each other, we knew what was going to go on, but we didn't just jump straight into the shower. We liked the dance, right? It made it, and we never really, except 2 of them, did I really, consummate the thing. Everything else was just, having a good time, you know, making each other feel better, and that's a good form of birth control. Boys, if you don't stick it in, you're not going to win. So anyway, so I spent a good time in there, and the otter guy comes. I'm like drooling on the side of the wall while this girl is having her way with me, and he comes in and looks and goes, "I thought this would happen." So kids, because he's been there like 8 years, and he says, "Why don't you dry each other off, Hazel? You can go now." And he goes, "So let's go to your room. Let's talk." So he's and there's also a nice, not only do I have a study, Carol, there's nice, like almost a couch, so people can hang out in my little end of the room. And he goes, well, I kind of looked you up, and you're a pretty impressive guy. You've got a lot of things under your belt. And he goes, now listen, I'm telling you straight up, what we are doing here is a enterprise. We're not going to school. It's an enterprise. And I said, what's that? And he goes, well, we have, like 2 years ago, I mean, when I was a freshman, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, we had a computer department, and they were changing all their paperwork into computers. And 2 years ago, they went totally bad. And four of the guys here are computer whizzes, and they worked there from day one and wrote the language to the operating system, and we control it. So what we do, this school is all about Jewish boys um, coming here and getting ready to go to law school or medical school. So what we do is we doctor their records, so we make them look great. And so when Harvard sends a letter to the admissions, the computer reads it and sends them what we have, whereas the people who push a printout to look at what they really got is what they see. So we sell these grades for $10,000 an A. And these guys were making some serious money. And they also had like the total control of every substance sold in that part of Long Island. I mean, they were representing their families, right? And so they said, we see you're going to be a theater guy, we see you're an artist kind of guy, but you're kind of a scientist too, and so we're going to let you in on the inside because we don't want you to screw this up. You know, we've seen how you've gone from here to here to here, and you're pretty much an ethical guy. So how do you feel about what we're doing? I said, well, you know, I have no qualms with what you guys doing. I'm going to do my thing. You do your thing. I will not ever mention what this conversation because that's the kind of guy I is. I don't spill the beans, and I will try and make this group look even better socially. You know, working with kids and this and that and racial stuff and because that's what I thought. That's what I wanted to hear. That's why I'm having this conversation after you just got pleasured. Now I want to show you something. He goes, "You ever experienced nitrous oxide?" I said, "No. I know what it is, but I never have." And he goes, "Well, come with me." And they had a room that was totally dark, had like nice soft lighting, nice interesting music, and they had wrestling mats everywhere. And he goes, "We walk in here, and he says, just breathe." He takes out a blunt, he lights it up. He says, "You ever smoke this stuff?" And I go, "Well, I know what it is. I've been around it a lot. I've worked in theaters and this and that." He goes, "Yeah, I know that you have a godfather, the Cardinal, but you have another one, Mike Finelli, who is Mr. Restaurant. And my dad knows, I know that's why I got the full skinny on you. So you want to have a puff?" And I took a little puff. I said, "Okay." But by that time, I started giggling. And he goes, "So this whole room is nitrous oxide." I said, "What?" He goes, "No masks, no balloons, no nothing. Just walk in here. It's mostly nitrous oxide, a little bit of oxygen, and so have a good time." And he gave me a book of MC Etcher stuff, and you know, I had a good time, right? And so he came back maybe less than an hour later, and I was just I was pissing myself. I was laughing so hard because I was seeing the total joke of what it all was, and it's just, "Hey there, Sandra," and so I said, "I'm gonna have a good time," and so that was a Saturday. Monday, I partied with these boys all the way till Monday. I went to my first theater classes, and that's where I met Elaine. And beautiful, brilliant, spoke 5 languages. Just she was smarter than anybody, right? And so, and she and I won't tell her whole story, but she was amazing, and yet she had that fatal flaw. Very Greek tragedy, very Aeschylus, you know. So um, we had a great relationship because she always had the football star boyfriend or the banker boyfriend or the, you know, and so but I was the guy she could really relate to, and we could have great sex, right? And I would take her up to the um, the mob clubhouse and for the parties, and she loved nitrous oxide, she loved marijuana, she loved everything, and her mother loved me, and her mom was the head administrator of the theater department, not the boss, but the filing papers and writing stuff. Blah, blah, blah. So Marion Tulin was the lady who got me in there. That's the lady from Columbia Broadcasting, and so I was there, and the first semester went fine, but I was just getting so much stupid crap from the professors. And then when Marion told them to lay off of me, they got even more passive aggressive. And I just ignored them and said, fuck you guys. Uh, you know, every weekend I go to New York and work, doing sets for George and George and the other big set company, Brooks Van Horn. They were the biggest costume company and the biggest sets. And so I had learned from those guys trompe l'oeil and perspective. And it's kind of where I learned how to paint. That's where I became a painter. So anyway, um, so I was doing what the teachers wish they could be doing, and I had all these, amazing New York City avant-garde. Like I studied photography with Seth Nodell and Cartier-Bresson. People started Vogue. I mean, I just had this knack to falling into the right people. So I basically was having a pretty good time, and then um, what happened was Elaine got knocked up by one of these schmucky boyfriends she had, and you know, she, they hadn't passed the abortion laws, but certain states you could get it. And so, and I knew people, in social movements, and so they knew where to get a safe medical abortion. So I took her there, and nobody, and I, she didn't have any money. I took care of it, um, and and to leave that schmuck. And so she did, and we became more boyfriend girlfriend. She lived with me up on top of the thing, and I nursed her back to health, and then she was happy, and we were having a great time, and we did so many fun things. And then she got knocked up by the same guy again, and and then she tried to kill herself, and then she, it's just like, woo. And and no matter what I did, could I help her get out of that bind? Because it was her. She just kept doing this, and it was her own self-loathing, and that's one of the problems of our culture. Is that it's built on self-loathing. I mean, here's a girl who's beautiful, fun, sexy, brilliant. Could speak 7 languages, and straight A student, and she had like 6 different majors. I mean, she's just amazing. And I was basically, I mean, like I said, I had 6 other girlfriends before her, but it was all like, you're special. Like, I like you because you understand me. Obviously, we're not going to get married. Obviously, we're not going to have kids. Obviously, but we're just going to enjoy that moment we have. And I tried to get her into that, wouldn't do it. And so, uh, yeah, radio remote control. So, what happened was she ended up in a facility, right? And her mother was distraught and had to leave school. So the whole little nice thing that I had, life I was having, plus the mobster boys, the ones I was closest to, they graduated and went on to bigger and better things. And our little clubhouse kind of started to fall apart. And so none of, yeah, and otherwise Hofstra's pretty, I mean, it's built right on an airstrip. It's like flatter than flat. It only has one little part of the campus that's somewhat green, and everything. Everybody in the theater, and Marion Tulin was always so busy doing other stuff. She was never there, and you know, Elaine's mom, who ran everything when Marion wasn't there, she was not there. So none of the people who I could just go in and say, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and they'd say, "Fine." That the school just went and became more. And the coach who liked the fact that I could play lacrosse and could scrimmage, and this other guy said, "No, I want you on the team." And I showed up to scrimmage, and he made me do wind sprints up and down the steps of the thing, and I got so pissed off. I was like, so many things were going on. I took a swing with him with my lacrosse stick, and he didn't like that. And so anyway, next semester is about to start, and I say to the lady at the bursar, I said, "So my parents paid for it already?" And, "Oh yes, the money's in the bank." I said, "Well, right here, right now, if I say I want to leave school for a period of time, can I get that refund?" "Oh yes, we'll give you cash right here, right now." So my parents, board and school, every books, the whole thing was $1,200. So bing, 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 bing. She gave me 12 Benjamins. I walked out there because a friend of mine had called me up, who I went to high school with, who was a great photographer. And he too was kind of the same situation. He wasn't really rich, but he had connects, so he got into, the rich schoolboy thing. And we were the two non-richy guys he was the artist guy with me, and he was a great photographer. So as a boy, like I was working as an electrician, he was working for the High Point Enterprise as one of their photographers. The photo editor died. His boss offered him the job. He called me up and said, "Hey, you want to be a photographer?" And I said, "Yeah, me at the High Point." "Oh yeah, that sounds cool." He goes, "Well, come on down, kick around for a little bit, and I will get you in here in a month or so." So I went down. I had friends who were at Duke, and I went to Duke, and I left school, so I no longer had a college deferment. But I left New York without any, forwarding address. I just had $1,200 in my pocket, and took the Greyhound to Duke, and I had my prep school herringbone jacket with the patches on the thing, and I had a nice shirt and khaki pants, and I dressed a little better than I do today, and I had a pipe. So half the people thought I was a professor, the other half thought I was, a grad student. So I just, and I kind of wormed my way into their library, and they gave me a carol in the reserve section of the library. And so, it was like, really? Okay, yes, this is cool. And so I was there, and I met this girl who was brilliant and gorgeous. I got all these, in libraries, I've ever seen pictures of real libraries that have these big, long tables with lights on them. That's so when you're doing research before computers, you would have tons of books laid out, and you could go from book to book to book without having to search through them, right? And so I had a carrel, and a little hole in the wall that I could keep reserved books there. And right behind me was a table with all of, I could spread books out, and I could do my research. Anyway, so I'm just researching whatever the heck I want. And Duke has a pretty good library, especially the reserve section, pretty special books. So I'm this, and I got papers everywhere, and I'm at my desk writing in my little notebooks, and I turn around, and there's this gorgeous woman, about 19, 20, and she's a little bit older than I am, maybe 21, and she's leaning over, and she has the greatest set, and I can see her aureolas, and she's leaning over, and she's looking at all the books, and she goes, "You read Greek?" I go, yeah. And Latin? Yeah. What's this? That's Sumerian. So what are you looking up? And I said, well, the reason to live, why we're here, the story. And she goes, really? And she goes, you're reading Freud, and you're reading, Mannheim, and you're reading all these, Carl Jung, and all these other more esoteric psychologists that nobody knows about. And then she sees I'm reading, books about paranormal. She goes, you're in the paranormal? I said, yeah. She goes, well, I'm here in grad school and, getting a degree in the paranormal. I said, I got a degree in that? She said, oh, well, it's. And she explains that she is working for an entity called DARPA, and they're trying to develop super soldiers. And so they're studying all the Eastern religions, guys who put swords through their cheeks and, pull it out and it heals them like in an hour. So, and they can walk on fire and, she, so we spend hours that day, and then we kind of walk through Durham and go to a nice coffee shop, listen to some poetry, and then we walk. And then she goes, "Oh, I actually have." And so, where are you staying? I said, "Well, like in the library, I sleep under my carrel." And she goes, "Well, why don't you come over to my place? I have a nice little apartment that they gave me." So, she was ready to go, and so. Then, we wake up in the morning. She goes, well, I have to go to this meeting. I think you should come along. Because I told her that I worked, or I was part of the USCG and the US Psychotronic Society and a few other real esoteric entities in New York, which she had heard of. And she goes, I think my boss would really like you. Because I told her about that. I was building sensory deprivation tanks and other Tesla technology and that's what USCG is to find technologies that to make doorways into the other side. And so the guy was like, and not just as soon as she interviewed, you do this, you can make that. Wow, we need this. And what these guys were, they were a company, a corporation. They were not part of the DARPA. They were a contractor, and they were called the SEAL Corporation. That became the SEALs in the Navy, which are the closest thing we have to super soldiers. And so I was building all kinds of apparatuses for these guys. And they were, so I wasn't going to school. I wasn't getting a degree. So I wanted cash, So I said, I showed them what I could do. I made a design for them, and they added or subtracted things. And then I said, all I need is, this school has a fabrication department over there, right? You get those guys to get me in there to work with their people. We will build this stuff. You pay for the materials, and I want $5,000 a device. And the guys, no problem. That is like easy peasy, We had to figure out how to do this, yes, and engineer it ourselves because there's hundreds of thousands. $5,000, not a problem. Cash, no problem. And so, I did that. And the one thing he wanted me was to get a certain level clearance. And so he called up the FBI and gave him my name, and they figured out who I was, and they were looking for me because I had disappeared from the radar screen of the go to the Vietnam War line. And so I'm and in Duke they had a theater department, and in that theater department I got to know those people. I told them Marion Tulin was my mentor, and I worked for these people and those people. So they were like, wow. So I became part of their little circle, and my girlfriend really liked going to those parties. And Marion Tulin one day showed up. She goes, where'd you go? And I said, well, I just left town. And I said, I'm bringing it was. I still have my draft card. I didn't burn it. I'm just on the move. Let them catch up with me. So she goes, well, they're looking for you. They've been asking. I said, why do they want, what's me? She goes, I have no idea. But, and I've heard that you're working for these guys, and I've heard that they have asked for a clearance for you, and I've heard that the FBI is going to come looking for you. So, and about a week later, my buddy called me, okay, we're ready for you. You can come be a photographer at the High Point Enterprise. So I did. And I lasted there about 6 months because they loved me so much that they wanted to get me a national press pass, and they went through the same thing. And then the sheriff came. He said, we did that. I said, why? You didn't even ask me. That little cardboard thing you gave me, that was good enough. I didn't need a national press pass. She goes, well, we thought you'd stay here, and we like you so much. You're so entertaining, and there's only one of you. So again, I had to go on. I was about to hit the skids when, Marion called me up and said, "Listen, I've got a gig for you. You can go back into school and you're going to go to Ireland and you're going to be with the National Theatre of Ireland." I said, "Well, that sounds pretty good," because I had to do something. Otherwise, those guys were going to catch up with me. So I went back to New York. Marion put me on the airplane. And for all this time, didn't see my parents whatsoever. I went and saw my grandma, but that was about it. Because, basically I took $1,200 from them and didn't go to college. So I went off to Trinity. Well, first I went to the National Irish Theatre, and they looked at me and said, "Listen, you don't even speak Gaelic. You do not know anything about anything. So we're going to send you to Trinity, and we're going to put you in, the history department, the Bard School, and then if they say you pass muster, you can come back. But you go up to." So I said, "Okay." So I kind of tootled off to Trinity and walked into that. And so the National Theatre of Dublin of Ireland, which is in Dublin, was at least was then. I don't know where it is now, but it was kind of almost across the street from the big post office, which is where the revolution for Ireland's freedom took place. And O'Connell Street was covered with these oak trees, beautiful, gigantic oak trees. And that's where the English hung the Irish folk and then stuck them on pikes. The English were not too nice to the Irish. So anyway, I walked the opposite direction up O'Connell Street, and the road forks. One way, it kind of goes up the hill to where the rich English guys lived in these houses that had windows, and you went the other way and went to Trinity, and like old Dublin, kind of where the river air comes in from the ocean. And back in the day, that was their port, but the real port's way on the other side where the airport is. But the rich people, how you knew these old houses were rich is that they had windows, because the English taxed the Irish people for a window. I mean, ridiculous. So they all lived in, houses that never saw sunlight, So I walked through the big gates of Trinity. I walked over to the admissions office, and I basically said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. The National Theatre sent me over. I'm supposed to go to the Bard School." She goes, "Oh, yes. We got the memo, and here, just sign this. Here's your ID. Sign this. You're going to stay in this house." They had houses that were run by, everybody was a graduate. There weren't undergrads at all, So, but I'm like, now I'm about 19, 20, and everybody's in their 30s, right? And so I kind of stroll in, and that's why I meet Archie, and he's a really old guy. He's Scottish. He comes from, his family are all dukes and earls and everything, so he's got lots of cash. And, he becomes my bud. He takes me down to the pub. He takes me here. He takes me that. Takes me into the reserve library. And the reserve library of Trinity. Trinity is the oldest continuous university in the world. It's like 3,000 years running. And the reserve library, a good chunk of the Library of Alexander is in that library. They don't really advertise that, but it's there. And they have, next to the Vatican, they have quite the library. So, I basically, fit in, right? They gave me my carrel. I had my little apartment. I would, show up at and they had different colleges, and each college was like a college to itself. There's Trinity University, but college, right? So I'm in this, the Bard, they call it the Bard School. And, so I'm learning Gaelic, and I'm, going back to the old Greek, first Greek Christian Orthodox Bible. If you want to read the Bible, read that one. And It's not a comic book like King James. So, and I get all these great teachers, and it's not like a class. You go and sit in their office or their lecture hall, and it's a dialogue, a true, like Greek dialogue. These guys were teaching like Plato did, and Aristotle and Sophocles, and you sat there and they pose questions, and they go around in a circle and see what you had to say about it, and then you went off and read for a week, and you come back and you have more of a dialogue about what you read. So I was really loving this, and I hadn't quite met a girlfriend yet, but I was already so drawn into um, what I was doing that, and that's me. My whole, I'm an Aquarian, right? And so once I get a hold of something to study or understand, I mean, I like sex, but it's not the main drive of my life. I'm not thinking about that, right? And and I don't need to replicate, right? So basically, Archie's my number one guy, and he is just, he's all about that human beings are alien toys, that we are manufactured, that we are. The first time I ever heard the term avatar, he said that humans are avatars, right? Our bodies are avatars, and our soul, and this is like in the 60s, not even servers, but he used that term that our soul is the server, and that our true essence is our spirit, because that is in co-creation with and he told me the story of Moses and the burning bush, and the burning, when Moses asked him the story, the burning bush didn't answer, I am who I am. He answered, I'm a work in progress, and you guys are my reflection. And I'm taking cues on how you're dealing with life, right? So um, so Archie's like, and he basically says that there are pyramids everywhere, and pyramids were machines, energy machines, for 0 point energy. I mean, he's telling me all this stuff in 1969 and 1970 that didn't turn up until 2006 on Stargate. It's like, and he said that that governments are just the shadow of what's really going on, and that there's a transnational entity, they called it the High Table, that is run by this orthodoxy that's left over from the Anunnaki, who came from the stars. And you read the Bible, it goes on, and the angels came from the stars, and they went into women and begat the heroes. So even the King James goes on about it. So, and he was also during World War II. He's a code breaker, so he was you know always showing me how to read the codes of the books, and looking for the keys. And so one day, maybe a month in, I'm comfy. I'm really liking what I'm doing, and I'm doing mostly research for Archie. He wants to know about, and the research I'm doing for him. I realize he already knows. He's just doing this for me to have to read these books and write things so he can read what I write, so he can either kind of pick up what I'm writing and you know amalgamate into his, because that's how scholars work. You're the apprentice scholar. You do that, and the lead, your master, kind of takes your work and reworks it into their own, and you get credit. That's how you get your professorship and blah blah blah. So I was just doing this, and I was having a great time. And we were going to all these pubs and singing and dancing, and I was like sparking with other people, but I didn't have a girlfriend. I was too busy. Archie was a party boy. He loved doing that. So I'm in my carrel in the library, got books spread out all over the place, and and I don't really interact with any of the professors. I just, the Bard School is just the guys on that, but the head guys, they have all these cocktail parties and never go, right? I'm just hanging out with my crew, and Archie's our leader, and he's not even Irish. He's Scottish, but he's been there forever, right? So he has a chair, actually. And he was the first guy at the Bard School to have a chair there. who wasn't, a druid himself. You know, it was like an honorary druid. So um, I'm looking at all these books and I'm turning them around, looking for the keys and looking for the code, and I get this whiff of like garbage. It's like, what is that smell? and and I see this woman coming in with a trolley, which is an English term for like a grocery cart, and she rolls in there, and I look at her and go, "Oh, that's interesting." And I go back to what I'm doing, right? And then the smell gets stronger, and I look up, and she's like right there. What are you looking at? And I'm going, because she looks like a witch. She got the mole on the nose, and she looks, kind of like me now. Just and dressed in garbage bags. And so, so um, you know, I'm like kind of, and she's looking at what I said. Oh, you're looking for the key, aren't you? And I go, yeah. She goes, it's right there. And I go, and she turns it around and she shows me how it fits with the text. I go, yeah, thanks. I would have never seen that. And she goes, Archie told me about you. I just came to see you. I said, oh. And she goes, you need, this is nice. How do you like this? Is this good? I said, yeah, that is, one of the better scholarly experiences I've had. She goes, but you've had others, and they were different. And I want to offer you one that will also be different. And I think you will find it um, more representative of who you are. And you don't even know who you are. And I said, you're right about that. And so she goes, I want you to go to the head dude of the college here and tell him that the old crone says that you're going to go up to her farm and study with her. And just tell him that so you stay on the books, right? So you don't get in trouble. And this is like, higher study. And I go, okay. So I never saw that guy ever. He's the head dude of Trinity, at least my chunk of Trinity. Not just the Bard School, but that college. And knock, knock, knock. I go. He goes, yes. I go, hi. I'm Al, and I'm with Archie. And have you seen the? Yeah, yeah. We got the memo. We know who you are. And you talked to the old crone, didn't you? And I said, yeah. And he said, what'd she say? She said that I should go study with her. He goes, well, go study with her. And I said, he goes, listen, I've been here almost 30 years. I got every degree I have from this place. I'm like the third hat to the top. And that lady won't even give me time of day. She won't even talk to me, right? So, and she's been here forever, way longer than me. Her and Archie have been here like 60 years. Archie has. I don't know how long she's been here. She's been here forever. And so if she says you should study with her, that's way better than this place. This place is okay, but that place will blow your friggin' mind. I've never been there. I don't know. I hear rumors. You should go. She's got to be your master. Go for it. And Archie has talked to me, and he says I'm the dude that should, once in a while, she comes and grabs a student, that I'm the guy. Okay. So I, walk out of there. Archie's waiting for me. He goes, oh, let's go to the pub. Let's have a few. And so we do. We get a little drunk, a little buzz. We sang with the boys. And he goes, well, she's going to come to your apartment tomorrow at such and such a time, and she won't be wearing garbage bags. I said, okay. And he goes, she'll, and he's thinking how to describe it, because she'll be wearing a red leather flight suit. I go, okay. That'll definitely make her stand out. And he goes, and she has, did you see what color her eyes was? I said, no. All I could notice was the smell and the garbage bags and her hair sticking straight up. And he goes, well, she will be having red hair and green eyes and a red leather flight suit. Okay. Like the Red Baron? He goes, just like the Red Baron. Okay. So, I have my little bag packed. I'm waiting. And, 7 comes, 8 comes, 8:45. Knock, knock, knock. and the doorman, in our part of our college, you come in off the street, there's a guy there who checks you in, right? And he goes, "A madam has come to call for you. I was told to, bring you down to her car." Oh, he takes my bag. He's this old guy. So I'll take my. I said, "No, no, it's my job." And so we walk out, through the quad and then out the gate, and there's this super red um, XKE Jaguar, and there's this lady in a red flight suit, and she's got the leather hat on, like the flight hat from World War I, and she's got these like radiant green eyes, and she goes, "Hey, how you doing? Get in." And so I get in, and now I've been now in Dublin maybe 2 months, and I've learned all the little streets and roads and things on our side of town, and pretty much the rest of the city. But the further you go that side towards the airport, the more modern-esque it is. It's still an old city, but it's anyway. So I get in, and she just sits. As soon as I'm in, we're like, "Oh." She's like doing 60 through these little streets, zing, 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 zing. And she pops out on the other side of the river. I don't even know how we got over the river, and we're shooting towards Limerick, right, straight to the west coast. And it's a beautiful sunny day, and she's flying, and there's no traffic, just and we slow down into Limerick. It's about lunchtime. We get out. We go to this little restaurant, and it's Greek, so she likes moussaka. We have moussaka and a salad and some wine, some grappa, and get back in our car and shoot up the west side of Ireland. And again, around 1 o'clock, we get to the Rings of Kerry, which are these like fingers, peninsulas that jut out into the Atlantic. And the Gulf of Mexico hits the west coast of Ireland. And so it's like going to Florida. Even in the wintertime, that water's like 70 degrees. They got palm trees all over the west coast of Ireland. And no one lives there, at least at that time, except for, the intelligentsia, the writers and stuff like that. A few little Byron and guys like that had little enclaves. So anyway, we're shooting up there, and right past Skibbereen, which was a county seat, between Skibbereen and Glendore, which is a little fishing village, which everything's made out of stone. And the mountains of Ireland, basically are the basement. There were mountains on Ireland that were like as big as the Alps, but over the millennia, they kind of got worn down. So what is now mountains are these, like, the foundation of those things. So they come straight down to the ocean, and it's like maybe a mile or so of coastal land between where the mountain comes down and the ocean. And that's the west coast. That's why it doesn't get developed too much, or didn't. I'm sure it's just covered in condos now. So anyway, we're zipping along that road. We stop off to see a friend of hers who's a writer, and he was getting long in the tooth, and she introduced me, and we talked, and we drank a little energizing tea, Pachin, and got back into our XK, and we're flying down the road, and I see a sign that says 15K to Glendore, and right about, I'm looking at the sign and zipping by, and all of a sudden, zing, she shoots up, and we're going up a road that's like this, up the side of that mountain. And one side is the mountain, and the other side is a cliff. And it's really only one lane big. And there are a couple of places where they've etched out a little where two cars could pass, but pretty much, and she is doing 70 going up this hill with the SKE. And she looks at me. I'm like, well, the seats are switched, so I am like sitting where I'm looking down off the cliff, and I'm seeing the tires like that far from my, and we're doing 70 up this thing, and it's not that much above a gravel road. I mean, it's blacktop, but anyway, so we're flying up this thing, and she looks at me and goes, "I'm going this fast because there will be a truck coming down. And as long as I can get up top before that truck comes over, the thing will be okay. And I said, okay. So we flying up this thing. And we get to the top. We almost like, we do this, but we don't. And we kind of, she's kind of slow, takes her foot up the gas and the car slows down on its own thing. And we come over the thing. About less than a half a K, big lorry comes up. So if we were going like the speed limit or slower, we would have met it halfway in the place where we probably wouldn't have had a little place to just. And this thing would take up the whole road. Forget about it, right? So we get by him. He waves at us. We wave at him, and we go about 3 or 4 K. And there's this little town that's just a pub, post office, bank, general store, everything, library. It's in this old ancient stone building, and it says highest pub in Ireland, and I got a photo of that. One day I'll scratch it out and show it to you. And so, we stop up there for scones and tea, and she gets her mail, and she talks to the guy, and they talk in Gaelic, right? Now, I've learned a little Gaelic, and so they're just going on the general kind of things. That's the farmer this and the guy that and the girl this and the guy that. So they're general just chatter and then he looks at me. He goes, "So you're the new adept for Madame?" I said, "Yeah, whatever. I guess I am." So she's chuckling, and we get in the car and we go down the road, and there is a sign that says "Dead End," right? So we're doing pretty, 40 or 50. It's not up a thing, but it's up an incline, and we're going to the top. You can't see the top, but we're going up towards the top. And again, we get to where the dead end is, and she just takes a turn into the woods, like into the woods. No road, just into the woods. But there is a road right there, but it's you know covered with leaves and grass and moss and this. But there's a road, but you never see it because the woods are so dark, so old. And in Ireland, they don't have too many trees left from the old days because um, it was part of the power of the Druids, and the Romans didn't like that, so they cut every tree they could and sent it back home to build coffee shops and boats, and that's why there's big shipyards in Northern Ireland because that was started by the Romans. So anyway, so we drive through this forest, and it's darker than dark, and because the nun crushed my eye, and this eye sees different spectrums of light, I'm seeing all kinds of things, and she's kind of, so what are you seeing? What are you seeing? And I really don't know. You tell me what I'm seeing. She goes, good answer. you know, she kept saying, I would, she'd ask me questions, and I would give her an answer like that, or if I knew it, I'd try and say, well, this is what I think it is, and she really appreciated A, my candor, B, my humility, and if I didn't know something, I didn't try to fake it. I was always super honest, super me, super straight up, you know, and I gave her total respect in that she was my master, 100%, and I really, really, really have always enjoyed that. Now that I'm older, I can't, all my masters have died, and they're all incarnate. So they come and talk to me, in dreams. I had some really interesting dreams last night. And where I live, they come and visit me in sprites. There's a lot of sprites where I am. And so as the rich cockroaches move in, like the kids at the end of the cul-de-sac, I mean, they are experiencing things, and I can tell energetically that shit's going on with them, but they don't even, it's like pushing their disbelief. So anyway, we're going through the forest. We pop out, and it's like heaven. And there's this beautiful lake, and a farm all around it, and hills above it, and a water flowing down off that hill into that lake, and over to, I guess, to the north um, of that plateau um, was her farm. I mean, this whole thing was her farm, but I mean, from where we drove into the woods was her farm. And she owned that whole top up there, probably 700, almost 1,000 acres. I mean, the whole top of the mountain she owned, because you couldn't, the only way to get the top up there was to come on that road. If you didn't know where it is, you'd never find it. You'd come to that dead end and had to, cul-de-sac, you turn around and go back. But anyway, and when they were talking Gaelic, one of the things was, "Oh, I've been away for 2 weeks. Anybody going up the road?" Because no one goes up that road except her. And if they do, they should be coming. They just tourists and went up it and find that no one ever goes into the woods, right? And there's a Gaelic story about going into the woods, and it's about going into the woods. So I, I'm just a guy. It's just an amazing, beautiful house, couple of barns, um, and we get in, and so she pulls in around in front, and then kind of pulls into the barn, and she has XKE. She has a Combi, which is like a Volkswagen van, hippie van, Range Rover, and a Morris Minor, and a Rolls Royce. She likes cars, and that whole barn where these cars are totally macked out with mechanics tools, right? And a big tractor front end loader, and um, a thing that cuts up the ground. It's a name for it, and it's escaping me. But anyway, and a few other farm, balers and stuff like that. And I had worked on a couple farms, so I kind of knew what that stuff was, and I could even. I'm not, I can kind of, back in the day of carburetors, I could fool with motors, but today's, not too much. And so I saw there was electricity in her barn. I said, "Oh, you got electricity?" I said, "Oh, yeah, we have electricity." And I said, she goes, "There are a lot of things to be fixed. And I know you're an electrician, so you can, that'll be nice. That's something you can do here." Said, "Okay, no problem." And so we go in her house, and so she has, from the outside, it looks like a nice little farmhouse, and a front porch, and the porch goes all the way around, but the front porch is big and has the roof going over it, so you can sit out there in the rain. The side porches, not, don't really have. They do. There's a door where the kitchen is, and there is a thing that goes over that where they pile up the wood for the wood stove in the kitchen. Anyway, so um, I see that she has a big, propane tank. I said, "So the truck comes up and goes, oh no." I said, "So where you get the gas?" And she goes, "You'll see." It's okay. And so uh, she walks me around that and shows me that outside, just so I realize how small this house is. So we walk in the front, and there's this gigantic front foyer, and there's this like music room, and there is a dining room, and there is a library, and there is a gigantic kitchen with another dining room, and there's a right kind of with the wall of this big gigantic music. Like you could have 100 people in there dancing at the dance floor and a little stage for bands, and the library is like goes on forever. It's like Doctor Who's TARDIS. Bigger on the inside than the outside, and it's like really, and so. And she doesn't say anything. So right up that wall, there's this nice, beautiful mahogany staircase that goes up, and there's another floor up there, and then around there's another stage. There were 3 floors, right? And bedrooms and other libraries and other art room, and it's just like 10,000 square feet on the inside, just roughly looking at it. If you measured it, probably 100,000 square feet, but it was like truly, like, and that was my first real. I mean, the road going through the forest was my first. Okay, this place, and then the seeing of that beautiful farm, idyllic, like straight out of everyone's imagine of heaven, and seeing all the vehicles she had and all the tools she had, and the shop she could manufacture anything up there, and so we went in the music room, and she had an amazing stereo system, Bose speakers. I mean, just top of the line, the best sound, better than most theaters. And she had reel-to-reel tapes, just a whole wall of reel-to-reel tapes. And I worked in recording studios. I could tell that a lot of those tapes were pilot tapes of from a studio. I mean, they weren't like multi-track, but they were half-inch, so they were at least 4-track. And so and a ton of records and a really nice turntable, and it was really. I'm just like, she had a tea, and then she in the sitting room, which isn't the living room, but just this kind of sitting room that's off the kitchen / and the dining room, where you'd have your TV dinner. There's a nice TV, right? And color TVs just coming out. She had 2 TVs, a little Motorola 19-inch black and white, and a as big as they got color one. And I didn't see any antenna out on the smokestack or anything. It was like, okay. And so she goes, "Oh, we'll have tea." And then in Ireland, tea is like dinner. So she we go in the kitchen. She sits me down. She gives me a big bowl of potatoes. Here, peel the potatoes. There was some cauliflower. Chop this up. Here's some celery. Chop this up. Here's some onions. Chop this up. Here's some beets. Chop these up. Here's some lettuce. Chop this up. So I'm chopping away, washing, and she's getting the pots and taking these things. And she had lamb. She made a lamb stew, and she had a freezer, and a really big, like commercial freezer, and a freezer on one door, the other one refrigerator. And she had every kind of cheese and butter and everything. And she had a cow, a bunch of goats, and she made her own cheeses and butters and really amazing creams. And she had made this, I call it stone bread. It's like oatmeal bread, but really coarse, but really yummy. So I sliced it up. She had a commercial toaster. Anyway, I'm looking around, and there are outlets, but I don't see where the power is coming from. There were no power lines coming through the woods, going into the house. I said, "So your power's underground?" And she said, "Oh yeah." So we had this amazing lamb stew, salad, and vegetables, and carrots, peas, um, Brussels sprouts, all individually cooked and served separately, but put on the plate together. And she cut everything up and seasoned it, and just kind of slid the plate in front of me, so I had to just take a fork and go. Other than her taking the fork herself and putting it in my mouth, well, I chopped everything up. I, prepared everything so she could cook it, and I watched it. And I was like, Anyway, and then I noticed she had a big wood-burning stove, but she also had a Garland gas stove, right? But she always kind of had the wood stove with some wood in it burning. It was always burning. It was always like that was her fire pit. And because her hot water was made, she goes, this is why we had the fire going all the time. Is that I said, well, we got propane. Why didn't you have a propane hot water heater? She says, well, because this was the first hot water. It works really well. I don't mind chopping wood, and now I have you to chop wood. It'll be fine. So I said, okay. So she takes me in. She puts some music on, some Bartok, right? And she's playing it, and that sound system is it resonates the whole house. Not really loud, not really too soft. Just everything about that place was just right? So, she gives me the full tour and takes me to the second floor, shows me all the bedrooms, and the third floor, which is kind of a rec room, kind of interesting place. And then she takes me in the library, and she goes, "So here's where my Carol is, and this is yours, right? And you have total access to all these books, but I'm the librarian, so you're going to have to say, I'm interested in this. Where should I look? Or can you and I'll give you the book. Or I will hand you a stack of books, which is what I want you to read. And then I want you to, do the same kind of discourse you were having with Archie and Trinity, right? But it's just going to be you and me." I said, "Sounds great to me." So we do that. And then, so I said, "Which one of these bedrooms is mine?" She goes, "None of them." And I said, "Really?" "Yes, come on." And so the sun was just going down. It was beautiful, the trees. And that's why the deep green where I am, I've cut it like she did. Meaning she was surrounded by this dark, deeper than dark woods. And where her house and everything she had cleared, or someone had, a good 50 acres, right? And so when the sun came up, everything in the west part of those trees was gold. And as the sun would rise in the morning, it would all be gold. And her house would be hit with the sun, right? Like by 7, right? And as the sun set in the west, um, the east side of those trees would get all gold. And we'd sit, and that's where the um, back porch, so there was a front porch and a back porch. And so you could sit on them all day long, and you could watch the world go by. So, we, there I was going through all of that. And I said, "So where I'm going to stay?" And she said, "You're going to stay in one of the barns. You'll like it." So I went there, and it was like a laboratory. And so you walked in these big, these front barn doors that were on rollers that rolled open. And then the back was a big kind of metal garage door that opened out. And so when it opened out, it stuck out. So it's like a roof. So you open it up, and you had a good 20 feet this way, 20 feet that way, that you could, it was a table that you could just kind of push over there in chairs. And if it was raining, that was the roof. And so this is your house. And so it was a laboratory, and there was all kinds of electric and electronic and laboratories, you name it. It was a really serious laboratory. And there was a nice staircase that went up, and there was a mezzanine. And the front of the barn where the rolling doors were was big high, and up there had all these windows, and it had a deck that went out on either side where the roof came over. And the roof was pitched that way, not towards the doors. And so they had 2 decks up there, and a big, beautiful bedroom, really, like a Persian rug, and really beautiful furniture, and one whole wall of books, and a nice carrel to write, and nicely lit. And she goes, "This is yours. And this way, that's my house. This is yours. You got privacy here. I got privacy there. But, you can come in there as much as you want, and I will roam in here, and, I'll always announce myself." And so, and they had really beautiful upstairs. They had a nice little bathroom downstairs, but they had a beautiful bath upstairs. It had a washer dryer, relatively new, Maytag. And like, I'm looking for, I said, "So where's the circuit breaker box?" And she goes, "Oh, you'll find it." And so it was like, and that was my first day. So that is 1 hour and 38 minutes and 59 cents. So I said, like, this is a series. Now, there have been some people who are, producers, digitally minded, who were really enamored with my tale of the old crone, and they want me to, produce with them. And we had some really nice conversations, and then they kind of dropped off the map. And they text me, "Oh, sorry, didn't get in touch with you. We really don't talk on the phone that much." I said, "Well, I text back. But I said, fine, I'll just call up and, you give me 3 minutes on your voicemail and I'll just have a dialogue to you and you know, I'll have a dialogue and you'll listen. And then they text me back, well, we don't really listen to our voicemail that much. We listened to one, and yes, it was quite an interesting dialogue. So I then texted them saying, well, then, and I couldn't really get a text out from the deep green. So I said, I'm here anytime, and I'd love to do what you want to do. And, the three really long conversations, I understand what level that you are and why you're enamored with what it is, what you kind of want to do. But, you realize that I have taken on the old crone's position with you and all of your crew. And and I'll treat you the same way that she treated me, with respect and honor, and not lord any kind of authority, but have an open dialogue where everyone's equal. And so I left it with that. So if you guys are watching this, I'm waiting. The teacher waits, or when the student is ready. And that was, what it was with me. So this was the first installment, and I hope you come back. And I gotten into a point because have no money. So anybody wants to send me something on the PayPal, go to PayPal and we'll say, what email? But due to wake42 at Gmail. Due to wake42 at Gmail. I could really use some cash because I barely have enough money to get from here to there with the gas, meaning I haven't driven anywhere in the last, 3 or 4, since you last saw me. And so that was Thursday, I guess. Well, I less and less because I had to fix my car, and that took every reserve I had. So now I'm really close to the bone. Instead of having 400 or 500 off there just in case of emergencies, I had to spend it all to get my car just running. So that's where I'm at. So anybody wants to send me something at PayPal, due to wake42 at Gmail, I would really appreciate it. And all those who have, and like when I fixed the car, somebody sent me $50, and that was, I didn't have 40, but that came in and bingo, I had 50, so I could spend the last nickel I had on the account and still have $10 in that account. So I'm really close to the bone, but I'm still living like a millionaire. Like Grandma said, live like a millionaire, but don't be one. Right? So I'm going to say goodbye to you guys, and I love you, and let's say a little prayer, and every day and every way, let us take the peace of the earth and make it stronger. I hope you enjoyed this story, and remember, don't believe a word I say. And all those who want to have a more personal dialogue, go to my Gmail account, the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And if you want to, you can leave me your phone number. I'll give you a buzz, just like the kids who are digital producers, And I have a real sense, they really understand that technology. I understand that I can clunkily use it, but, I don't even have I have to drive 30 miles to get on the internet. So, buddy, I love your emojis. Hey there, Bear. Let's see what people have said on the chat, because people have been chatting away here. So, buddy. Absolutely beautiful as usual. Let's see. Human Blunder. Good title for a poem. Yes, I'll use that. I am great. I'm on my 4th novel. It's called Ear Hair. It's like I live out in the woods, so I wake up and I can be covered with insects. I'm a pretty deep sleeper, and they're at least kind of respectful for not crawling up my ears and into my ear holes and my nose holes. And it's kind of because this gets in their way, And so I can't just poison them because I'd be poisoning myself. So I kind of have to talk to them. And, all the other animals I've come to arrangements with. These guys are new on the block. And so they're going, So they're trying to figure me out. And I'm trying to get them to just, you got all outside. You don't have to go in the man cave. So anyway, so that's why I call it ear hair. So I'm going to, when I go visit my digital guru at App State, I'm going to have him print out 20 pages of the novel I'm working on, and I'll read it to you. You might find it interesting. Because I haven't figured out how to bring up a document. Let's try it right now, see what happens. See if this will come up. Can you still hear me? Taking forever to do this thing. Okay, I'm just going to read some of this and see if you guys got it. So if you're still there, listen. You can still see me. Hello. And then I'm going to jump back into the live chat and you can make some remarks, see if I figured this out. So it's called X-Ratted Ear Hair. Ear Hair is book number 2, first in the X-Ratted series. Don't believe a word I say. This is poetry's run-on sentence of your life story. What you say? I can't hear you because I don't want to. For you're not in my news feed tribe. You're not speaking Fox. CNN and MSNBC is just fake news speak. That's why I listen to Boogaloo music on my Bluetooth boombox. Born again, mercantile JC lies, full blast, and down out cancel culture crap like JC being a black guy. Then, love's unheard voice. It is not enough that humanity in first person come to drink when the invitation from love's higher source has gone forth. The adept must transform alchemically their ego into a new skin of service to retain the new wine of love's infinite transformative purpose. Which way will you turn? Ronnie Joybox was a hybrid clone of the insectoid hidden hand of the fascist corporate military, media, financial, scholastic, industrial, mercantile, eagle lie of Gob. Just like most mud puppets, Ronnie was Gob's science fair experiment. You know Gob, the bigger than big, morbidly obese white guy who sits on a big gold toilet in the clouds, who looks just like Popeye and says, I is what I is, so eat my shit and die. So I'm going to leave it there. And I've got about 40 pages of that. So I'm going to click back and see if my live stream is still clicking. Well, it seems to. So did anyone get that? Did you hear what I read? I want some feedback on this one before I say goodbye. So is anybody there? Did anybody hear that? Well, anyway, I'm going to sign off here now. And when it posts up, I'll take a look and see if it went on there. Let's see, where is my... So goodbye, folks. I love you. Stay well. Be good. See you later.